What do these tariffs mean for Australian companies and Australia's economy?
Well, the biggest hit to us is going to be what happens to the Chinese economy. And I mean, Donald Trump imposed tariffs on China during his first term. He's already put in place another 10% hike. That was a month ago. And now we've got a new 10% hike. So we've got significant trade imposition on China, and that will affect the Chinese economy. Interestingly, the Chinese National People's Congress meets tomorrow to discuss, and I'm sure tariffs will come into it, to discuss their economic outlook for the next year or the next 5 years, really. And if the Chinese economy takes a hit, that is going to have a serious impact on Australia because it is far and away our biggest trading partner.
Okay, and so the impact for markets, is this more than the correction that many had expected was coming?
I think the correction hasn't really begun yet, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, we saw, as you said, Nvidia fall and the tech stocks really took a bit of a hiding overnight, but they're still hugely up from, just even in the past 2 years. I guess the biggest problem for America and for the world for that matter is that global stock markets have been driven by mostly Wall Street, and Wall Street's been driven by mostly just 7 companies. Back in 2020, the Magnificent Seven, as they're now called, those big 7 technology companies accounted for about 20% of the valuation of all of Wall Street. That's now up to 32%. So that's a hugely concentrated market, not just for America, but for the entire world. In our case, the hit is going to be in resource companies because, we saw iron ore prices fell overnight, and that's our major export.
Ian, are share market movements going to be exacerbated because of a change in the way we're investing?
Look, I think it's entirely possible, and there's been concerns about this for quite some time. You've had the rise of passive investments, or passive investment funds. So instead of an active funds manager there, a human being actually deciding what's going to happen, how these geopolitical events are going to shape markets, you've got computers essentially just placing money where the biggest company is. And so it's really, rather than just replicating market performance, they're actually starting to drive market performance because they are far and away now the biggest allocator of funds. And so if you've got money chasing the biggest company and then suddenly something happens and all that money runs out, well, what you're doing is you're exaggerating the rises and then potentially exaggerating the falls when they come.
Now, Ian, you've been following Star Entertainment's struggle to survive. What are you hearing about attempts to stave off collapse?
I don't think it's going to be very successful, really. I mean, they're running out of cash. They actually ran out of cash last Friday, and Steve McCann, the recently installed chief executive, somehow managed to scrape together enough money for another week. So Friday is really the deadline. The directors are not happy with the way the company is performing because it doesn't have any cash, so they've refused to sign off on the accounts. That's why it's suspended from trading on the stock exchange, because it hasn't fulfilled its obligations, its reporting obligations. And so unless Steve McCann can come up with some, pull a real rabbit out of the hat within the next few days, it could possibly go under tomorrow, maybe Thursday, definitely by Friday.
Ian Verrender, good to speak to you.
Thanks, Kirsten.